For years, the Houthis have terrorized the Red Sea, attacking ships and threatening Israel's destruction. But now, President Trump has finally had enough. After relentless provocations, Trump ordered decisive military actions with a message that could not be clearer. Your time is up. The strikes took out multiple Houthi leaders, leaving 53 dead. This isn't just talk, this is American resolve in action. We'll break everything down on this show. I'm David Warp, and this is the Israel Guys. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Hope you had a very wonderful Purim last week for those of you who celebrated. And for those who might not be familiar with the story of Purim, really encourage you to go back, read the book of Esther. It's an incredible story. It tells of the story of when the wicked Haman tried to lead the people to destroy the Jewish people. This is a story we've seen time and again throughout the subsequent millennia. People, enemies of Israel, try and destroy the Jewish people. God is faithful, and he turns the plans back on the enemy's head. Just like it says in Psalm 94, he shall bring upon them their own iniquity and shall cut them off in their own wickedness. And we saw a testament to that just this weekend with the Houthi terrorists in Yemen. They finally got what was coming to them. For years, the Houthis have been calling for the destruction of Israel. They've been shooting missiles into Israeli territory, and they've been attacking ships crossing through the Red Sea because they're in a really strategic position in the Red Sea, and they have kind of a chokehold on global shipping routes that go through there. And they've been attacking not just Israeli ships, but any ships that they deem countries that they deem allied with Israel. They've been attacking United Kingdom ships, which maybe isn't exactly the most friendly country with Israel, unfortunately, but also American ships. And finally, the U.S. has had enough. And I want to read this. President Trump posted a truth on Saturday night. And it's a bit long, and I'll skip through parts of it, but I want you to hear the forceful language that Trump uses when talking about the Houthis and talking about this strike that was carried out on the Houthis. He said, "Today I have ordered the United States military to launch decisive and powerful military action against the Houthi terrorists in Yemen. They've waged an unrelenting campaign of piracy, violence, and terrorism against American and other ships, aircraft, and drones. The Houthi attack on American vessels will not be tolerated. We will use overwhelming lethal force until we have achieved our objective. The Houthis have choked off shipping in one of the most important waterways of the world, grinding vast swaths of global commerce to a halt, and attacking the core principles of freedom of navigation, upon which international trade and commerce depends. Our brave warfighters are right now carrying out aerial attacks on the terrorist bases, leaders, and missile defenses to protect American shipping, air, and naval assets and to restore navigational freedom. No terrorist force will stop American commercial and naval vessels from freely sailing the waterways of the world. To all Houthi terrorists, your time is up and your attacks must stop, starting today. If they don't, hell will rain down upon you like nothing you have ever seen before." And then he continues with a message to Iran. He said, "To Iran, support for the Houthi terrorists must end immediately. Do not threaten the American people, their president who has received one of the largest mandates in presidential history, or worldwide shipping lanes. If you do, beware, because America will hold you fully accountable, and we won't be nice about it." So this was indeed quite the statement from President Trump. And for all of you that might think this is just Trump making threats without following through on them, but in this case, the U.S. did indeed use overwhelming lethal force. According to Trump's national security advisor, Michael Waltz, he said the strikes targeted multiple Houthi leaders and took them out. And there were videos that came out, and we can't show all of them on YouTube, but you can see the strikes actually taking place and taking out terrorist infrastructure. the Houthi-run Ministry of Health reported 53 people dead. That was the latest number that I saw, and many more wounded. It was over 100 people wounded in this, which is very sobering, very sad to see these terrorist leaders willing to sacrifice their people, willing to sacrifice the Yemeni people. They don't care for their own people, and they'll sacrifice them for this goal of terror, for terrorizing the world, terrorizing the West, terrorizing Israel, trying to destroy God's people. They're willing to sacrifice their own people for this, and so it's very sobering to see the cost of war and terrorism. So the leader of the Houthi terrorist, Abdul Malik al-Houthi, responded to the attacks in a speech, and he said that American-owned merchant ships will now be banned from the Red Sea, which is pretty funny to me. As Trump would say, you don't have the cards, right? You don't hold the cards. You don't get to dictate. I don't know who this Houthi guy is who thinks that he owns the Red Sea, that he can control who comes in, who can use it, and who can't use it. But yeah, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, buddy, but you can't dictate to the U.S., to the rest of the world, especially not the U.S., what we get to do. As U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said, the U.S. would continue to conduct unrelenting strikes against the Houthis until they end attacks on shipping. And another top official mentioned that might take days, that might take weeks even. Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. I was just reading my new book, Facing Jerusalem, God's Plan for Global Redemption. You know, Christianity is in trouble. Every day our faith is attacked and often watered down. Those who are zealous for their faith are few in number, or they are not willing to speak up. Young people are leaving the faith of their childhood to chase the dream of this world. If we look carefully at the Bible, however, we find that God gives us hope through an ancient prayer. This prayer unlocks the door to forgiveness and God's favor in our lives. It all goes back to the dedication of a temple in Jerusalem, when Solomon prayed for the nations. Many times when Christianity is seeking repentance and revival, however, the key ingredient is left out. Facing Jerusalem. Facing Jerusalem was written by Luke Hilton and Zach Waller. Filled with their personal stories, this book paints a beautiful picture of how all believers should care about and recognize Jerusalem's key role in the redemption of the world. Solomon asked God to answer the prayer of those from the nations that look toward and face Jerusalem. Is this prayer still valid today? Purchase our book at theisraelguys.store or click the link in the description below. Enter the promo code Jerusalem for 10% off. Order your copy today and experience God's plan of redemption and blessing in your life. Just go to theisraelguys.store or click the link in the description below. On Saturday night, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a high-level meeting talking about the Hamas ceasefire, the release of the last of the remaining hostages. In a memo released right after the meeting, the Prime Minister's office said that Netanyahu instructed the negotiating team to prepare for the continuation of the talks as per the mediator's response to the Witkoff proposal for the immediate release of 11 living hostages and half of the deceased hostages. So Steve Witkoff, who is the U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, he's been the one that's been talking with Hamas, with Israel, negotiating talks between them, trying to come to some sort of agreement. And it's hard to know exactly what his plan, what his strategy, his mindset is for getting these hostages out, because there is no such thing as negotiating with terrorists. Israel should know this the best out of anybody. Their entire history has been, giving up land, doing insane prisoner exchanges, giving resources and aid to terrorist groups with really nothing to show except more attacks, more like October 7th that we saw. So you can't negotiate with terrorists. And I think Steve Witkoff is, finally is getting impatient with Hamas. he's really getting frustrated. Just yesterday, he went on CNN and he threatened them, saying what happened with the Houthis yesterday ought to inform as to where we stand with the regard to terrorist actions. So he was talking about the airstrikes that happened on Yemen. He said, I would encourage Hamas to get much more sensible than they have been. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio actually called Hamas nuts and savages. He said the Hamas terrorists are bad people, terrible people, and we need to treat them as such. Which is, Hamas terrorists, we see the attacks that they committed. These are not faithful negotiating partners. They're not interested in peace. They're still committed to destroying Israel. Speaking of articles of peace, I just saw an article from Arut Shiva that announced a new hilltop was being developed just down the road from where I'm sitting. Actually, I went out shopping yesterday, and I would have driven right past it. Unfortunately, I didn't know at the time, and so I couldn't get any pictures or footage. But it's right in this area, which is a very strategic region, and it's very needed. For one, Jews are crazy outnumbered in this area. You have a few Jewish communities dotted along the hillside. You have these hundreds of thousands of Arabs in the valley, the city of Shechem, the village of Hawara, these hostile places. And outposts are greatly needed strategically. It's also on a hilltop, and it overlooks some of the highways. It overlooks the Tepuach Junction, which is one of the major junctions in the region. It connects northern Samaria to Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and the Jordan Valley. And so it's a very, very strategic vantage point. It also overlooks the town of Hawara, which has seen some truly terrible terrorist attacks. Not much else is known about this project yet, but it is great to see any time the Jews are reclaiming the promised land, restoring the land. It's a good thing to see. We're almost out of time, but I just had to get to this last news story. The Iron Beam laser defense system is set to launch by the end of this year. Finally, after it was promised in 2023, it was promised in 2024, it was promised in January of 2025. It finally seems like this might be a reality. And I don't want to bore you with all the science and all the nerdy details. Maybe I'll have to start another channel about Israeli technology. Comment if that's something you'd like to see. But basically, it's a giant high-powered laser. It shoots rockets, drones out of the sky. And the good thing is it's way more cost-effective than the Iron Dome. I saw some estimates were saying it could be as low as $2 to $3 per laser shot, compared with each interceptor missile for the Iron Dome is anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000. So maybe we'll finally see the Iron Beam by the end of this year. That would be super awesome. But that'll do it for this show. Make sure you subscribe to The Israel Guys. Get the conversation going down in the comments below. Don't forget to check out the book at theisraelguys.store. If you'd like to support our work here at The Israel Guys, head over to theisraelguys.com/donate. As always, stop listening to the fake lies and propaganda and connect with the truth of what is happening here in Israel. We'll be back soon here at The Israel Guys.